Hello everyone, I'm Grandmaster Denes, and this time we return Ruy Lopez Gambit. So let's dig in. Let's see what we've learned so far. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4 takes bishop b5. Now there are multiple move orders. I discussed them in earlier videos, which you can find. Bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, d4 transposes into what is called the Ruy Lopez Gambit, where white is aiming for a quick development and ways of undermining black's position before black could actually put the king into safety. So in this case, I chose d4, bishop b5, a6, basically transposing, bishop e7. So one of the lines I talked about is rook to e1, which is a very interesting way of playing. And if black does not react, white can go for e5 and press the knight away. And if black goes d6, then white does have the move of knight takes d4, putting pressure on its pieces. Now in this case I chose e5, which is a very interesting move, knight e4. And popularly people go rook e1, queen e2, but this time I went full gambit style with c3, d takes, queen e2, and my whole idea is that yes, I am giving up one, a two, and maybe even a third pawn in order to inconvenience my opponent's king. At c5, c2. Of course, my bishop will be key in the attack as I will have to put pressure on my opponent's king. Takes, takes. Here, of course, knight b4 is an idea. My opponent castled. Knight c3, d6, knight d5. So even though I am down a couple of pawns, but look at those bishops lording down the board, putting pressure on the king side. So let's say black chooses to take on e5, then white can go knight takes c5. And if queen takes d5, then I take, queen takes c7, and still have an attack brewing. Opponent was trying to be cautious, played h6. And here I played rook a d1, which I'm very proud of. Again, a very simple, solid move, putting pressure on the king, the queen. Not on the king yet. The king will be attacked by those bishops. So rook d1. Now, taking on e5 is not an option anymore, because if you capture here, I capture back, capture a knight f6 check, I do win the queen. Now, for that reason, my opponent chose bishop to g4. And here I made a mistake. I already had the idea in mind, but sort of underestimated it. I played h3, which is a decent move, trying to ask where the bishop is going. But probably I should have gone queen c4, with the idea of setting up a deadly battery with queen to c3. Takes, pawn to takes, knight takes, then again we have knight f6, got the queen. And if they don't do that, queen c3 is coming shortly and the attack is very, very difficult to handle. But I played h3, bishop h5, queen c4 now, which again is not necessarily the best, but it's thematic. b5, queen c3. And suddenly, it's very, very difficult to deal with those threats. Knight a4 isn't really an idea, which usually is the case. I can just capture, and capture the knight. Probably going b4 would have been better. My opponent played the ugly looking f6. Now, if you go queen d7, that wouldn't really change a thing, because I can open it up with deadly consequences. Of course, if you take its mate, and if you go bishop f6, I just capture that one, and the attack blasts through. And mind you, it's move 20, and the attack is already raging. f6, here I actually erred. I should have played e6, and then my opponent's pieces would be too much of walled up. That bishop really doesn't have a life there. And if knight d5, I have g4. After b4, queen e3, white is the one dominating. I am going to win the b pawn, and with barely any pawns behind, white is definitely in the driver's seat. I took on e7, which was, of course, a concession, wasn't the best. he takes, but I was trying to open up for my bishops. Rook e1, bringing in all my pieces, which is of course crucial. And it makes the situation very, very tense. My opponent played knight e5, g4, bishop f7, knight d4, aiming to slalom that knight to f5 and open up with f4. And here my opponent made a last error. Queen b7 would have been better, but I still have an attack going on, which would continue after f4. My opponent played bishop e6, but bishop e6 actually runs into f4, and it's even more powerful because if knight c4, I can capture. Actually, I shouldn't capture. I should play bishop f5 first, with some pressure on e6, and with no way of blocking it, white is winning. The rook c8, I captured fearlessly, because if the knight moves, it does not matter for me. I go queen d3, and if you capture the bishop, it's check, check, and it's checkmate. F takes e5, knight f5, consolidating, queen a7, trying to lure me out. There would be some tricks with knight a4, but I resolve that tension. Now I have threats on d6. Now it is game over. e5, I capture here. Rook takes d5, and my opponent sign. So I really hope you enjoyed this mini lecture, small lesson on the Ruy Lopez Gambit. And if you want to find out more, definitely check out the description below. And if you liked it, do subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.